Hello and welcome in, everybody, to another YouTube live show. I am John Kurtz. Today, I feel like we have everybody popping off, whether that is Paul Finebaum, whether that is the president of the University of Washington, whether that is SMU at large, just SMU as a whole. I feel like everybody is a little bit snarky and popping off today. So maybe I will join that chorus. I will admit on the interwebs today, I've been a little bit in that mood. Missouri fans, Nebraska fans, so maybe you'll get a little bit of that from me today. But we'll just see. We'll see if we have time for all of that. We'll see if you guys can provoke me to get to that point. That is also another factor here. But welcome in here on this channel. We are talking Big 12, college football, college basketball, conference realignment, all of that stuff from a Big 12 slant. Please consider subscribing if you have not. Here is what is on the docket today. As I mentioned in the outset and with the tease of the video, Paul Finebaum had quite the quote about the ACC when he was talking with Matt Berry of ESPN. So we're going to get to what exactly he had to say and how much we should read into that. How much does Paul Finebaum really know? SMU, boy, I tell you what, TCU fans, anybody in the DFW Metro, I am getting a little sick of SMU running their mouth after joining the ACC. And there was quite the article on ESPN.com about what is going on with SMU right now and how confident they are that they are going to be returning to glory. And they even took some shots at other universities in the state of Texas, which I would imagine has to be generally pointed at those in the Big 12, TCU, Texas Tech, Baylor. As I said, the president of the University of Washington, basically, I'm going to say in a roundabout way here, called out all the leaks going to John Canzano as one of the things that was a big problem with the conference and does not seem to have a whole lot of remorse for the decision that she made in helping Washington lead the conference. So there is that. We have a minor update on Oregon State and Wazoo, the two that got really screwed in the latest round of conference realignment. We will give you that as well. That one comes from Jason Shear. We've got some TV ratings. You know that Colorado TCU number was massive. And we can obviously talk some football this week. Monster week for the Big 12. This has to be a bounce back week for the Big 12 with all the opportunity that is out there. Big part of that opportunity as it pertains to the league this year is Texas and Alabama. And that's not even just about what it does for Texas. That's about what it could do for the rest of this league. We'll make sure to dive into that. Looks like there's a changing of the guard in the ACC. Speaking of talking about the problems that they have, boy, I think you can pretty much cook Clemson when it comes to being an elite college football squad. I don't think that they are there anymore. Injury news out of Waco. Lots of stuff that I have here that I can get into. But if you guys are here and have been here before, you know how this works. You can be a big part of the show as well. You can control some of the content on the show here tonight, depending on what it is that you want to talk about. And I'm particularly interested, I will put this call out. I'm particularly interested for those of you that have big Power 5 opportunities coming up this week for your squad. I'm interested in how confident you are. Even more than that, I will drill down to like the Texas Tech, TCU, Baylor fans of the world. How confident are you in your squads bouncing back from what happened last week? I definitely would like to know that. But open board, you guys can talk about whatever it is you want to talk about. Just know that I will not be able to get to with 150 people basically in the chat here already. I will not be able to get to everything. I can't follow everything there. So the way that you make your voice heard and get your question or comment on the show tonight is to make it a super chat. You can attach a donation to your chat by clicking the $ below the chat box. That is how you can make your voice heard tonight, control the content on the show, and support the work that I'm doing to bring you this conference realignment, Big 12 football, Big 12 basketball content on a regular basis. Another easy way to help the channel, very easy, quick and easy, one click. Just like the video. Simply liking the video is a big help as well. Easy thing that helps me with the YouTube algorithm. You can leave a comment under the video in the comment section. That also helps. And if you are not watching this live, you're catching this after, you can also support the channel as well. You can just do that on Venmo. It is John-Kurtz-4 on Venmo if you want to support the channel that way. I believe that's the laundry list of things that I need to get out there for all of you guys here before we actually start the show. So you know what? Let's get into it. What's up, Will? Thank you, Will, for being here and your support as always, my friend. Will says the big question for ACC implosion is if it destabilizes it enough for the Big 12 to rate it. The worst scenario is if they steal UCF, Cincinnati, West Virginia instead. Yeah, now that's an interesting one. I had not heard a lot of talk about that. I imagine that this goes back to what the ACC did in adding Stanford, Cal, and SMU. They were trying to essentially backfill before anything happens. So, hey, if Florida State, Clemson, whoever leaves, we have a little bit of extra padding here where the league is not going to just implode right away. We'll still be around and still be standing, even if we are now like a definite Big 12 caliber league, or worse, because we've now lost our top brands. We still have strength in numbers that we can keep everybody there and would not necessarily fall apart and be rated by the Big 12. And so in this scenario, you're saying they would take UCF, Cincinnati, West Virginia, more geographical sort of fits there. I don't know, man. I don't know. If West Virginia fans, the vibe that I've gotten from West Virginia fans and all of this is that they don't seem too fond of the ACC. They've wanted to be in the ACC for so long and never actually received that invite. I mean, hell, you look at it from West Virginia's perspective now. SMU has gotten an invite to the ACC before they did. Cal got an invite to the ACC before they actually did. So we'll see. I mean, I suppose. I also, the other part, and I'm foggy on this. This is where I feel like I actually am letting you guys down a little bit, and I probably need like my guy R Webb to help me out if he's here. Maybe he's not, but what would the financial penalty be at that point then to leave the Big 12 years down the road? That's another element of this as well. Grant of rights would be a piece of this, depending on what the timing is going to be. So there are a number of factors there, but I think you do raise a good question now. Like, has this backfilling thing actually worked to the point where it wouldn't crumble immediately upon Florida State deciding that they're going to get ballsy and make their move, or Clemson following suit? Honestly, if I'm Clemson, you might want to get a little more gutsy about this and try to make that move now before Dabo's program goes back to being like a 7 or 8 win program, because it feels to me like that's the way that's all headed pretty quickly. I know he's been defiantly speaking out against that, saying today that if their offense outside of the turnovers does what it did against Duke all season long, they won't lose another game. Okay, bold statement, buddy. But anyway, that's what's going on with Dabo and Clemson. I would try and get out if I were them sooner rather than later. But it feels like something's going to happen at some point. Will Cal, Stanford, SMU be enough to keep it all together? We'll see. I mean, I know SMU, I'm sure, thinks that it will be, because SMU is quite bullish on what is going on right now. Let me, I see the other donations. I promise I will get to you guys in just a second. I'm going to read you the Paul Finebaum quote right now, just because it's pretty quick. It's pretty quick and easy here. But this is what Paul Finebaum had to say about the ACC on with Matt Barry of ESPN. He said, I just want to congratulate the ACC for essentially voting out Clemson, North Carolina, and Florida State, because after what happened Friday with the admission of SMU, Cal, and Stanford, they have essentially given those three a ticket out. That league, which was already teetering towards irrelevancy, has just taken on 3 schools that devalue an already discounted product even more, and that league is just heading towards the iceberg. How about that? Heading towards the iceberg. Is the Titanic just a matter of time before the ACC sinks, according to Paul Finebaum. And he is somebody, again, remember, that works at ESPN. He's got some hookups and some connections within the old TV world there, being at ESPN. From an SEC perspective, I mean, I understand how it is that he comes to this sort of conclusion, because the scenario that we are talking about is just mere survival. It is not thriving. It's surviving. It's not thriving. If you lose these top brands, if what he is saying is true, that by bringing in Calford and SMU, you have given them a ticket to leave, then they would just be talking about trying to survive at that point. And I think that basically to Finebaum is hitting the iceberg anyway. He's just saying when those schools leave, Clemson, North Carolina, Florida State, the league is going to be in a ton of trouble. He's probably right. I think he is probably right, essentially, with all of that. They will struggle to find a big boy seat at the table from then on. Whether or not they get picked apart is a different part of the question. A couple of observations I have on this. One, isn't it nice that he's saying nice things about the Big 12 these days? And the ACC is the league that is getting the crap from Paul Finebaum. And that's even with Clemson still around. That's with Florida State still around. That's with North Carolina still around. Finebaum's loving up the Big 12, clearly sees the trajectory of that going in a much different direction than the ACC, even if the ACC was the most recent to actually add schools. So I very much appreciate that. And it is a testament to what Brett Yormark has done because, I mean, I saw all the Finebaum comments with you guys storming into the chat here tonight. He doesn't have a lot of fans here, and I wouldn't consider myself to be a big Paul Finebaum fan at all. I mean, he's not somebody that is very well liked, and he's not somebody that is easy to win over if you're not in the SEC. But he seemingly has been won over by Brett Yormark and what Yormark has been able to do here. So to be the league that is not the punching bag right now from Finebaum is a very, very welcome thing to have. How long ago I can remember him taking shots at Iowa State, not all that long ago, for instance. I guess my response to his specific comments here would be, I think Florida State, Clemson, North Carolina were going to be gone anyway. I mean, maybe this accelerates it a little bit if it's going to ruffle enough feathers, but I don't really know that this would have a tangible impact on any of that because nothing that they do, like they're trying to throw a bit of a financial bone to those schools here. It's not going to be enough to really move the needle. Nothing that they can do short of adding Notre Dame was going to move the needle. And we know that Notre Dame piece is not happening. So they were never going to appease those schools. They're going to be gone anyway. It's inevitable. You probably should, I suppose, take a stab at protecting yourself. I mean, it's awkward and weird, and I kind of hate it, but I guess I understand what they're doing. I would give them more credit. I guess I'll put it this way. This would not be the time to take that stand if I were Finebaum. Like, the time to take that stand was just long before when it seemed like this is clearly where it's headed, where Florida State is being as mouthy as they are. That ship has already sailed. Like, we've seen what Florida State talks about behind closed doors. Well, we can only imagine what they talk about behind closed doors in those board meetings because we've seen what they talk about when there are cameras in the board meetings, just broadcasting it to everybody to see. And they're saying, yeah, we're going to be out. We're going to be out on this thing. We'll be out of the ACC. So I think that was already done. I don't know that really did much to change it one way or the other. It's just it's a survival mechanism here for the ACC. So maybe not a perfect take from Paul Finebaum, but in general, if his take is like, hey, the league's headed for the iceberg, I mean, that is tough to argue. It does feel like they are drifting that way, and it's going to be a matter of when does Florida State actually want to go full steam ahead and make the thing completely hit it and rupture. So anyway, obviously we can riff off of that, but that was the Paul Finebaum quote. Snake, what's going on, Snake? Appreciate you being here. Snake says Big 12 championship game, K-State v. UCF. I'd be here for that. It's going to be a huge game. I think it's like, is that like September 22nd? What is the date on that? First conference game, K-State and UCF in Manhattan is going to be a big one. The 23rd, September 23rd. That will be huge in Manhattan. I will be there, and I'm very much looking forward to that. UCF's getting a lot of buzz, man. I saw like FPI, I know ESPN FPI, they like UCF the most out of all the non-Texas and Oklahoma Big 12, contenders. So UCF starting to get some love. People are taking notice. It was certainly a great week one for the Knights. I am taking notice. And I like this and appreciate this about UCF, man, giving some extra juice to that early K-State schedule, because I'll be honest, when K-State fans generally looked at the home schedule this year and saw, okay, it's UCF, TCU, Houston, Baylor, Iowa State. It was kind of like, all right, well, TCU, that'll be a fun little rematch after last year, and they should still be pretty good. And TCU has an easy schedule up until then, which LOL at that, because they've already lost the game now. And that feels like that may have lost some juice. Now it's being replaced by a big one with UCF. So I welcome it, Snake. I welcome it. And if we can do our part to keep Texas and Oklahoma out of that thing, even better for everybody involved. Zach, what's up, Zach? Great to see you, my friend. I appreciate your support as always. Zach says, reminder that the Big 12 Bearcats are still undefeated at the time of this writing. Damn right they are. And Emory Jones has to be, is he leading the league in passing yards? What did Emory Jones put up here? Let's see if I can pull that up real quick. I have not been able to watch any of that Cincy game. Tough for me to find. Like, I love the extended highlights that you can find on YouTube, but I have not had a chance to go seek out Cincy. I'm curious and also Emory Jones has to be just laughing at the whole thing after seeing what's gone on with his old squad, Florida here. All right, leaders passing. Emory Jones is, in fact, leading the conference in passing. 345 yards, 5 touchdowns, 82.6 completion percentage. Not bad. Not bad for one Emory Jones. Zach says, also the fact that a Big 12 school could fulfill its Power 5 non-conference requirement by scheduling SMU next year is insane. Hadn't thought about that element of it, but yes, that is true. And I'm sure SMU seems to be in the mood to just take all comers right now. I'm going to get to that ESPN article here before too long. It may be the next thing that we transition to, in fact, since we're already talking ACC here with Finebaum's comments. But yeah, man, SMU is not afraid. They are not afraid. They've got money and bravado in spades. So I'm sure you can go play them. I will be interested. They've got Oklahoma this weekend, right? Speaking of games that will be very interesting to watch play out, we do have that game at the very conventional start time of 5 o'clock on ESPN Plus. I guess that's why the Sooners are getting out of town, right? They want to get rid of those 5 o'clock kickoffs on ESPN Plus. But yes, Zach, that is a very good point. That is a very good point. And congratulations to your Bearcats, man. Congratulations to your Bearcats. I was happy to see them play as well as they did. And now they go to Pitt and they play on the CW. Did everybody know that? You know, for all the shots that we've been taking at the CW. Now you've got an ACC game with their little mini deal with the CW. Cincinnati gets to go play on it. So bust out all those Gossip Girl jokes that you had when you go rummage in the ACC and you have to take on these lowly ACC teams. You get thrown on crazy networks like the CW after Gossip Girls. So honestly, Zach, we should be apologizing to you. I am sorry that as an esteemed member of the Big 12, you have to stoop to the level of the ACC and play on the freaking CW, sandwiched between Gilmore Girls and Gossip Girls. So apologies. Thank you for taking one for the team on that front. And we're certainly all wishing you the best of luck in that matchup. We could pick up a couple of wins over Pitt here, this non-con schedule, huh? West Virginia fans, you on board with that? Feel like we could all get on board with that. PM Dasher, thank you for your support, PM Dasher. I appreciate it. Not seeing a comment attached there, but I always do appreciate it. Thank you for being here. And my friend Julius, man, far too kind. Thank you for being here and for your unwavering support of the channel. As always, man, really, really appreciate it. Julius says, howdy, John. It's been a minute. I know I'm a week late, but I'd like to wish all Big 12 fans the best of luck on the season. Wasn't the greatest week 1, but the Big 12 will be fine. Go Cougs. I agree, Julius. Big 12 will be fine. Rough one to shake off in week 1, but big opportunity coming up here in week 2. And congratulations to BYU for getting it done. It was a little bit ugly, but hey, they got the win. They should win again this week with Southern Utah coming in. So looking forward to that. I think BYU will take care of business. Probably won't be as tricky as last week was with Sam Houston. And then you go to Arkansas, man. Speaking of opportunities for the league, then you go to Arkansas. That's an opportunity for BYU on their schedule there to go help out the league next week with an SEC road win. So K-State will be at Mizzou. You've got a couple chances next week for SEC road wins for this league. So all hope is not lost. You are correct, Julius. I think it is very astute to point that out. We can't get too far down. I've been trying to tell Texas Tech friends of mine, like, hey, man, yes, that was rough. Last year, I watched K-State lose in week 3 to Tulane. They turned around the next week and won at Oklahoma and went on to win a Big 12 championship and finished the regular season after the Big 12 championship game, we're ranked in the top 10 of the college football playoff rankings. So as bad as that looked at the time, as bad as it felt, K-State, if you would have told me on the eve of losing at home to Tulane that they were going to wind up after championship Saturday in the top 10 of the college football playoff rankings, I would not have believed it. Would not have believed it. So as much as we live in this like Twitter instant reaction world where everyone wants to get their jokes off, everyone wants to pop off really quick, does not mean that all hope is lost and everything is done. So I appreciate the positive vibes as always, Julius. Thank you for being such a great supporter of the channel. Thank you for being here. Truly appreciate you, my friend. And let's go get it done. Let's go get it done this week. Will, what's up, Will? Will, anyone, or are you excited? Are you excited for the sequel to Pony Excess? I am, except I'm excited for this story arc to be a little bit different. This one, like, all right, well, now SMU is going to throw all the money everywhere, and they're just going to flail around in a fledgling ACC. I'm hopeful that that will be the vibe that we get, as opposed to what SMU would like to believe that this is going to be, which is just wins on top of wins in a major conference. I mean, the first thing, before I even get into this article from ESPN, the first thing is just, I mean, SMU their messaging seems to be very coordinated that, hey, we are the only team in DFW to be in a top 3 power conference, which is hilarious, absolutely laughable. Where did TCU's head coach just come from? They're the better program. They were in the national championship game last year. But SMU is now trying to take their shots and feeling all big and bad and boisterous because they're in the ACC. And look, I'm not here to tell SMU that they shouldn't be excited about it. They should. They should, especially if you're a fan. Like, it's not your money. Somebody is going to be footing the bill, and it is not your money. So you want to be excited about it. That is totally your prerogative and your call, and I get it when you've been wandering through the dark ages like they have. But they need a dose of humility here. Can we get them a dose of humility here? Bow at the altar of TCU a little bit. Respect your elders. In this case, just respect the better programs that have been there, done that. Chill, and maybe we'll see in 10 years if you can put together multiple 12-win seasons, go to a national championship game, go to multiple New Year's Six bowls, because you got a long ways to go there. You got a long ways to go, SMU. A long way to go. So, maybe just shut up for right now, Rhett Lashley. Here's an article from ESPN. I'm picking and choosing little parts here. So it says the Mustangs willed themselves into the ACC despite a modest enrollment, 7,056 undergrads in fall 2022, a decades-long lack of high level football success, and a frustrating lack of fan support. SMU's athletics ambition is still bigger in Dallas, as the Texas saying goes. They did it by making the ACC a deal it couldn't resist. They joined the conference without taking any money from the league's TV deal for up to 9 years, according to sources. But why and how? Here's a quote from athletic director Rick Hart. He says, "I'm going to leave some mystery around all that. I don't think it's as simple as people want to make it out to be. You can't forego something you don't have. We're not going to take a step back resource-wise, even from a conference perspective. So this is all positive. We've got an underdog mentality. We've got a chip on our shoulder. We've had to do more with less for a long time." I mean, that first line, he's being asked, like, how are you guys actually going to do this? I mean, we know with the deep pockets that you claim to and apparently legitimately have, that's the way that you're going to do it. But, like, how specifically is this going to go down? We're going to leave some mystery around it. I kind of like that move if you're SMU. Like, you're trying to portray big, bad, deep pockets. We've got more money than everybody. I mean, I guess you might as well be like, well, we're not going to tell you how exactly this is going down. It also, maybe there's some shady stuff going on there. Are we getting the Saudis involved here with SMU? Would you put it past them to do that? I think they've got boosters who can probably take care of that, as opposed to invoking the Saudis. We'll leave that to Florida State to try and fund their way out of the ACC. But I digress. For now, there's a mystery surrounding how exactly SMU is doing this. Continuing on in the article, officials said there is also conference distribution of other league-wide splits, such as college football playoff or NCAA tournament revenue. In short, the Mustangs believe that there is money to be had if they win. That's a point I had not heard anybody talk about, mainly because I don't think that SMU is going to be making college football playoff appearances anytime soon. But if they did, they could still recoup some of this money back. And with the American TV contract, I think that was at $8 or $9 million a year for everybody. So I don't know if you go get a chunk of the ACC pot left over by SMU, Cal, and Stanford and the discounts they're taking, and you're picking up an extra 4 or 5 one year, 4 or 5 another year, then you're really pretty much in the same sort of boat that you're not too far off of the boat that you were in already in the American, but you're getting the prestige of the ACC. So fair point to bring that up. That's at least out there. But to me, that does seem kind of like, you'll see contracts of guys in professional sports where it's like, all right, well, so there's an incentive-laden deal. They're not going to get to these incentives. Like, those incentives are a long shot. That feels very much like that to me for SMU. But, oh, man, continue reading on in this thing. They definitely think that they are going to win. In fact, the next line in the story is, and they think they will. SMU's Boulevard Collective is one of the most generous NIL programs in the country, reportedly paying all football and men's basketball athletes $36,000 a year. Didn't know that. SMU's already shelling out $36K for every athlete for football and men's basketball. Gerald J. Ford Stadium is currently undergoing a $100 million expansion, part of a $300 million investment in new athletics facilities in the past decade. Quote, "You already do everything like a Power 5 school," SMU Board of Trustees Chair David Miller said he was told in realignment discussions. The ACC as a whole wouldn't mind if SMU becomes another small private school that is a football doormat. The league will get the money, and its college football playoff contenders have one more team to beat. It's on SMU to prove them wrong. Now, I don't think SMU is going to necessarily be a doormat either. I think it will be somewhere in between. We probably need to, as is typically the case, not going to be black or white. It'll be a little bit gray somewhere in the middle there. But Miller, who was just quoted a minute ago, Miller told ESPN he thinks the Mustangs have a lot to sell with the program on the rise. And here is where Texas schools pay attention. Baylor fans, pay attention. TCU fans, pay attention. Texas Tech fans, pay attention. Houston fans, pay attention. This quote says, "I don't think it would be a stretch to say that there are some people out there that weren't excited about the notion that SMU was going to be uplifted back to Power 5 status," Miller said, hinting at a few Texas universities. "Think about what it's going to do for our recruiting. We already recruit extremely well. The only thing that anybody could ever use against us in a recruiting battle is the fact that we're not Power 5. Okay, look, there is some truth to that statement, that obviously would be the easiest way to recruit against them right now. But, I mean, are we sure that they're going to be stealing away everybody from TCU now just magically because they joined the ACC? The conference that Paul Finebaum said is hurtling towards an iceberg, whereas TCU just played for a national championship and is in a much more stable league as of right now. I'm not so sure that it's going to have quite the impact that they are anticipating. It will certainly help. I'm not sure that it will have quite that impact. I'm sure universities across the state of Texas were not thrilled to have just another university in the state elevated to Power 5 status, because that will increase the competition a little bit. I don't think anybody is like running and hiding in a closet right now because SMU got elevated to the ACC. I think Tech, TCU, Baylor, I think they're going to be just fine. They've got their problems right now in different areas, but it doesn't really have anything to do with SMU. So anyway, lots of brash talk here from the old ponies. I'm not even done with the article, but I'm going to hop back into some of your donations here to give us a break. Give us a little break from SMU. All right, I don't need to be thinking about Craig James anymore by proxy here, talking about SMU. Aglist, what's up, Aglist? Appreciate you being here, my friend. Aglist says, "John, how about my Blue Devils crushing Clemson? Love to see it. Love to see it. Loved all the Dabo jokes that were out there, man. Dabo being such he's just a little much, right? Like Dabo for me is just a little much sometimes, especially being the guy that was like dragging his feet on NIL in the portal and some questionable comments about that early. Did not seem to be one that wanted the athletes to have this level of benefit or control. And now he's frankly reaping the opposite of benefits, reaping the problems that come with that and having that attitude and not being somebody at the forefront and on the cutting edge right now. I mean, it's just, I'm looking at the skill talent that's out there. I mean, like Clemson, Sammy Watkins, Justin Ross, like all these guys, they've fueled the Chiefs wide receiver core for years now. And I'm just not seeing it. Like the skill guys that are out there, they've got some real problems. And Duke kicked their ass. Like that was not just a win. Like Duke blasted them. How far do you think Duke can go in the ACC this year? Have you heard if Jalen will play against Illinois? Rockchalk Jayhawk Allen, but he has a Duke MBA. Look at that, Aglist. I'm not sure, Allen, that anybody in America has a better combo of basketball degrees there. How far do I think Duke can go in the ACC? Look, right now, you'd have to open it up and say they can go wherever they want to go, short of beating Florida State. I would have a very hard time seeing that. But like Duke won 9 games last year. I think we're all on board with Mike Elko being a great coach, and they just beat probably the second best team in the league, maybe third. You start to open that conversation up, interestingly, with North Carolina. North Carolina had an impressive win in week 1. So, that battle, Duke, North Carolina, could be a great football game this year. I don't know Duke's roster very intimately at all, but just based on where I know where they were as a program and what Elko is trying to do, I would be surprised if they were to get to the ACC championship game or something crazy like that, or really put a scare into to Florida State. But I'm also not going to. I'm not going to totally count them out of anything based on what I just saw. So that would be my answer, an uneducated answer on Duke, an admittedly uneducated answer on Duke. But I love Elko. It seems like he's a great coach, and I will say I think that game. I think Duke is probably an 8 or 9 win team again this year. But I also think that game says more about Clemson, what's happening with the Clemson program right now. Not taking anything away from Duke, but Clemson is going down. They've already taken a half step below that uber elite status that they were at. DJU looked great for Oregon. I know it was San Jose State, but he was throwing laser beams on Sunday. So, like, it feels like that's a Dabo problem. That's a program problem. He's lost coordinators now. The athletic director is gone. All the synergy they had going on is gone. I think Clemson's in some trouble. Have I heard if Jalen Daniels will play against Illinois? Last I saw, and I have not checked admittedly lately, last I saw was a couple days ago, Brett McMurphy, who, again, esteemed national reporter. He did say that Jalen Daniels was on track to play. I know I think Lance Leipold on his press. I think his presser was Monday. Said that he had still been taking quite a few reps in practice. So it feels like Jalen Daniels is probably on track to play. I would expect him to give it a go. But as I said, I have not seen anything in the last 24 to 48 hours necessarily about that. But appreciate your support, Alan. Thank you for being here as always, my friend. PM Dasher. Hey, PM Dasher says the Cyclone women's volleyball team came from 2 sets behind to beat Iowa 3-2 tonight. Love that, PM Dasher. Love that for your Cyclones. And I'm sorry, I have to make one joke here. But PM Dasher, I am glad that you specified that was a volleyball score, because if we all just saw, hey, Iowa State beat Iowa 3-2, I think we would all have to do a double take for a second and be like, oh wait, they played that football game on a Wednesday? Is that what happened? They played that already? Because seeing a 3-2 score, quite obviously, for Iowa State, Iowa, I mean, no one's going to bat an eye at that. Like that may well be the final score of the game. If the over-under is 6, you might want to take the under when it is Iowa State and Iowa this weekend. There's a lot going on around that game. If you've been paying attention on Twitter to what has happened there. So, I mean, look, I'm excited to watch that. And speaking of opportunities for the league again, if Iowa State can jump up and beat Iowa, which it feels like they do all the time, very often, even when they have an inferior team, it would help. It would help a little bit. Not as much maybe if Iowa weren't just a national punchline, but it will still help a little bit. And you know what? I saw on the Twitters today that there was I told you it's like everybody popping off season. There was an Iowa receiver who was asked what he saw from the Iowa State secondary. And he said, opportunity, and then kind of doubled down on it when a follow-up question came. Yeah, I see the opportunity there to make plays. Don't know that I'd be doing that to the Iowa State defense, especially when you are the Iowa offense. A little bit of a lack of self-awareness there. But anyway, appreciate it, PM Dasher. Thank you for letting us all know there. And best of luck. Best of luck to your clones this weekend. Will hopping in again. What's going on, Will? Appreciate you, my friend. Will says the annoying thing with SMU is that they didn't earn their promotion. They bought it. Utah, TCU, BYU, UCF, Cincy, and Houston all earned theirs with winning. Don't disagree. SMU definitely bought it. They've got daddy's money. They're trust fund, baby. But I will also give the caveat that none of those, and I know SMU earned it, but none of those programs did have to deal with the death penalty and what exactly that did to their program. So that's a contributing factor here that set them back for decades. Once again, earned. And say what you will about, if you think the kids should be getting paid, even if you do, it was against the rules at the time. They knew that. And they benefited greatly. I was reading earlier in that article that I referenced, they finished in the top 5, 3 out of 4 years from 81 to 84. So they reaped the benefits of it before it all came crashing down. But yes, not nearly as earned as the first. Well, I mean, we'll say the whole list, I guess, because Houston, I shouldn't crap on Houston too much there. Tom Herman definitely rose up, had some really nice seasons. And obviously Dana a couple of years ago won 12, right? That was a 12-win season. So they have done more winning recently than SMU has too. They absolutely have. Yeah, it's annoying. SMU is definitely annoying. I will not disagree with you on that, Will. I will not disagree with you on that at all. SMU definitely annoying and chirpy. Zach, what's up, Zach? Great to see you again. Thank you for your support, my friend. Zach says, with the ACC on its way out, I'm starting to view the Big 12 as the Dr. Pepper of college football conferences. Nowhere near as big as Coke or Pepsi, but a perfectly acceptable and popular third option. Zach, that is a tremendous, tremendous comp. That is a great comparison. I like that a lot. And you know what, Zach? I would add to this. You'll find a lot of people who would tell you that Dr. Pepper is their favorite soda. Because, hey, again, may not be the big behemoth brand, right? All about brand that Coke is or Pepsi, but it is unique. It is more fun. There's more flavor going on there. You got 23 of them, right? In Dr. Pepper. A lot of people would tell you it's their favorite. May not be the best, quote unquote, nationwide or whatever, but a lot of people would tell you it's their favorite. Those are the analogies, Zach, that like when I was doing sports radio every day, 10 years doing a 2-hour show every day. That is an easy way to drive a point home, is to come up with great analogies, great comparisons like that. And I would sit there and try to purposely think of things like that, like really force it sometimes. And most of the time I didn't come up with anything as good as that. So just my compliments to you, sir. You need to start your own podcast or YouTube channel. That's pretty well done. I like it a lot. I think that's a very good comparison. I will definitely take it. The other part there, Dr. Pepper just being a little bit different, offering something different. Big 12 in basketball, offering something a little bit different than what Coke and Pepsi do. So great stuff, Zach. T. Higgins is a badass in here. Okay. All right. T. Higgins is a badass. We're still talking about T. Higgins. I know T. Higgins isn't on the roster anymore, right? I mean, hey, look, I appreciate you. Thank you for the support. Finebaum has been wrong more than any other clown on the air who is disguised as an expert. Well, I'd have to go. I'd have to go look at like Finebaum's major predictions here. But look, you're not going to find me defending Paul Finebaum too much. And a lot of that, if you followed me for a while, is not just about the SEC homerism. It's about like the whole concept of the radio show. Like I get credit to the guy. He built the following. He's obviously grinded. He's a writer for a long time. All those things. But as a sports radio guy, again, who did it for 10 years, I'm very annoyed by the concept of his show. I basically never took calls. I didn't like taking calls. It's kind of lazy. Callers generally aren't interesting. You can't control them to be interesting. So it's just a risky and kind of lazy way to do a show. And I mean, that's basically his entire show. I mean, most of the time there aren't many takes coming from Finebaum throughout the show. It's, let's fire it up. Here's 5 interviews and then 6 segments of calls. And that's pretty much your show. So you're not going to catch me sticking up for him a whole lot. But I don't know. You probably haven't liked a whole lot of this show. T. Higgins is a badass, but I think Clemson's in some trouble here. Not that they're going to totally tank as a program, but if you're thinking getting back to Final Four status, not seeing it. And I definitely think Florida State is leaving this league one way or the other. And I don't think that Cal, Stanford, and SMU did a whole lot of good for the ultimate prestige of the conference, even if it did do something for the survival. So I would probably agree with Finebaum more than I agree with you. T. Higgins is a badass, but we welcome in whatever opinions you got here. So I am fully willing to give you that platform. Appreciate you and your support. Mike, thank you for the support. Not seeing a chat attached to that, but thank you very much for being here, Mike. Good old Mike Hoover. Shout out to Mike Hoover. Shout out to Cat Fan in Huskerland, aka Daniel Osborne. Appreciate you, Daniel. Daniel, you know what? I'm thinking about you today because I was going at it with some Nebraska fans a little bit on Twitter earlier. I mean, my God, could we inject some self-awareness into somebody? They've had the worst record outside of Rutgers in the Big Ten for the last 5 years, and just lost in the same devastating way last week to open up the season, blowing a lead, continuing to choke it away even under Matt Rule, and we still can't get some self-awareness in those guys. Anyway, Daniel asks, speaking of the Huskers, will Nebraska beat Colorado Saturday? Also, how good is Troy? Great show, John. Go Cats. Hey, thank you, Daniel. Very generous as always. Sincerely appreciate your support. Thank you, my friend. Okay, so will Nebraska beat Colorado Saturday? I don't think so, but I will just caution everybody that this is like the letdown spot of all letdown spots if we're truly thinking about this, right? Colorado has been hearing nothing but how awesome they are all week. Dion started the receipt thing immediately in the postgame press conference. And look, I think he deserves some of that, although it's not the media's job to cheerlead. So I didn't love like the press conference coming in there. But if you want to make a statement like, hey, I know there are a lot of you out there who didn't believe in us and do it more general, that's fine, because there were a lot of people that went over the top with the criticism of it and just kind of calling him an idiot and all these things. And he is not that. He is far from that. But man, they've been hearing about it all week. I think Bill Snyder used to always say, like, oh, like people have been reading their press clippings too much. You know, I mean, this is what Colorado's had so many press clippings to be reading over the last week and hearing about how awesome they are. And now they've got to come back and play a Nebraska team that, well, I was just making fun of them and where that program is at. I mean, they do play some defense. So I do think they'll be met with some resistance. And this is just a new challenge now for the Dion hype machine. Can you control the hype? Can you get yourself back focused, ready to go against a team that certainly is capable of beating you? It's got the week one overreaction letdown spot written all over it. So I do expect a close game. I think that Colorado still is going to have enough juice to win, but I would expect a pretty close game there. How good is Troy? So K-State plays Troy. They're 15.5-point favorites. Troy won 12 games last year, and they were a Hail Mary completion by App State away from winning 13 games last year. So that's a pretty good team, man. They beat UTSA in a bowl game. Their opener against Stephen F. Austin gave up a lot of points. It was kind of sloppy. Their offense, I believe, turned it over 4 times. They had a running back pop for almost 250 yards. They're capable. And Chris Kleiman has lost 3 times to Group of 5 teams in his now 4+ years at K-State. He lost to Navy in the Liberty Bowl. He lost to Arkansas State to start the 2020 season, and he lost to Tulane last year. So all the reason to be on high alert, I think, if you are K-State. But I don't think Troy is quite what they were last year. I don't think they're quite at that level, but they're still one of the best teams in the Sun Belt. And that's not a conference that is to be trifled with these days. So pay attention. Keep your head on a swivel. Shout out to Greg. Keep your head on a swivel for that one. That's what I would say about that, Daniel. But appreciate your support. Thank you for being here. Always appreciate you hopping in on the show. Uh-oh. See, I knew this. I knew T. Higgins was not going to like this. T. Higgins, Duke didn't kick Clemson's you-know-what. Clemson had first down on the Duke one and didn't score either time. Both were self-inflicted, so that skewed the score. Okay, fair enough. That is true. That was just kind of a bungle fest by Clemson all the way around. They did screw it up and cough it up quite a bit. But I would also point out, I mean, Duke muffed a punt that led directly to Clemson's only touchdown. So the Clemson offense minus a Duke muff punt may not have scored. So, you know, we can play this game a little bit on both sides. But you're right. If you look at the final stats, like I think Clemson outgained Duke. It did not look like in the box score this was somebody getting totally railroaded. So fair enough. You know what? I will amend my statement a little bit, T. Higgins. But I don't think that is going to make much of a difference in where Clemson is ultimately going this year or where the program is going. I think you've gone basically, I would look at it like this. Clemson, from being on the elite level, I think has been down a half step the last couple of years. Feeling now a full step down below that level. That's where I think it is going. Even if it wasn't a total bleed kicking by Duke, a little bit closer than the final score would have indicated. John Teal, what's up, John Teal? John Teal says root beer is greater than Dr. Pepper. Wow, I feel like that's a pretty hot take. Now, I like a good root beer. Don't get me wrong. Love a good root beer. But I think Dr. Pepper is the superior entity there. Just to me, just, you know, my personal opinion. And I think most would probably agree with that, but maybe not. I don't know. We'll leave that one up to the chat. But John, that took some courage, man. That's a hot take. That took some courage to throw out there. So I appreciate you doing that. I do. I had a nice little discussion on Twitter the other day about best root beer, whether it was Mug or Barks. Because as a kid, I was definitely more of a Barks guy when I was drinking root beer more often. So maybe that's another discussion going in there as well. Isaiah, what's up, Isaiah? Appreciate you being here. Thank you, my friend, for your support of the channel. Isaiah says, Cougars were the only future Big 12 Texas team to not lay an egg this past weekend, hoping for a respectable 6 wins in the first Big 12 season. Hey, you're right. And you know what? I remember getting off of the live show on Sunday and being like, damn, I didn't say anything, I don't think, about Houston, or maybe just very, very briefly mention that. Big time win, man. Big time win. UTSA has been a great program last couple of years. You beat them 17-14. I think it felt like a lot of people. UTSA was a pretty popular pick there to win that game. Love that for Houston. Love that they found a way to get it done. And that's a game that you really needed to find a way to get done. Now you go to Rice. That should be very doable this week. And then TCU is going to be tricky, but then Sam Houston at home. Like, you could conceivably get off to a 4-0 start here. We'll see how much TCU is able to recover. But if you're going to get to 6, which I agree, I think that should be the goal for Houston this year and for Dana, that is an important game to pull out last week against UTSA. Because the conference schedule at Tech, West Virginia, Texas, at K-State, at Baylor, Cincy, Oklahoma State, at UCF. There's some tough road games there, man. You got to go to Tech, to K-State, to UCF. Texas, you're going to play at home, which I'm sure will be a charged up atmosphere. And frankly, that feels like the type of game that Texas would lose. But you get the point. Yeah, that was a big one. That was a big one. Houston could get there, man. I think 6 wins is potentially out there, but you got to keep taking care of business. And obviously that includes this weekend against Rice. Starter 179. What's up, Starter 179? I'm glad that you bring up TV ratings, because now I can go bring those to the table. Starter 179 says Big 12 TV ratings have been superb thus far. The Big 12 is going to be just fine, and the Power 2 narrative will end. I wish the Power 2 narrative would end. I feel like that is going to be pretty strong, though, unfortunately. However, your point about the TV ratings, Colorado TCU was the second most viewed game of the weekend behind just LSU Florida State. 7.262 million people watched Coach Prime in his debut against TCU. That is current Big 12 against future Big 12. Say what you will, and I'm one of those saying it, about the odds of Coach Prime actually being in Colorado next year when they get to the Big 12. But for now, that is a nice number, and there are a lot of eyeballs on 2 teams that are going to be playing Big 12 football here for the foreseeable future. West Virginia was involved in that game with Penn State on NBC, so that definitely helps being on NBC. That was the 4th highest rated game of the weekend, drawing 3.497 million to watch that. I feel sorry for the 4.6 million people that watched Ohio State and Indiana that are in between there as the 3rd most viewed game of the weekend. Rice, Texas drew 3.21 million. I would also feel a little bit bad for that. Although watching the extended cut up of that game, I mean, Texas's skill talent does really pop off. Like, it can be pretty entertaining to watch them just because of the skill talent that they do have. We'll give them that, but we know it's Texas. They'll find a way to screw it up. They've done it 13 years in a row. John C. What's up, John C.? Thank you for your support of the channel. John C. says SMU shouldn't talk. In the end, they bought their way to the ACC. You're always welcome in Provo. Visit the BYU Creamery for the best ice cream ever. Thank you for that recommendation, John. I will absolutely check it out. And someone asked me I was doing Salina, Kansas radio this morning, an interview, and I got asked, which new stop in the Big 12 are you most looking forward to making? And look, no offense, I'm picking my favorite child. I love all of you, all 8 of you incoming to the Big 12. But John, you know what I said? I said Provo. I said I want to get to a game in Provo because those fans have been so great. I want to meet them, and the backdrop looks gorgeous. So that is tops on my list. Tops on my list. So thank you, John, and correct about SMU and the ACC. Definitely bought their way in. I realize I have not given you the Washington president quote. I've got that coming up in just a moment after I get to Matthew here. Matthew, thank you for your support of the channel, Matthew. I appreciate it. Matthew says, will you be in Arrowhead tomorrow? How many NFL games do you typically attend versus college football? I will not be at Arrowhead tomorrow. I do not attend very many NFL games. So a couple things on that. I am a big Chiefs fan. I mean, you can see the Mahomes Magic Crunch over my shoulder there. Grew up in Kansas City, currently live here. So I'm a big Chiefs fan, and I lived through all the years of Tyler Thigpen and Brody Croyle and Elvis Gerbai, the garbage quarterbacks. They were lining up there for a long time. So I deserve this, all right? I'm not just some fly-by-night bandwagon Chiefs fan. But it's like college, K-State, K-State in college football here. The Chiefs maybe like here. I mean, I definitely like them, and I definitely follow them, and I'm a big fan. But it is not on the same level as K-State. So K-State, I'm going to be at almost every game that I can. I don't think I've been to a Chiefs game post-pandemic. I think the last one I went to a game in 2019, and it was one that they lost. I feel like, was that the Texans? Who the hell did they play? They lost, and I had a miserable experience because the ticket place that I bought a ticket from, the ticket didn't get transferred in time, and I missed the first quarter standing out there waiting for it to work. It was not great. The problem is when it's not like the thing that I ultimately care about the most, it's just so much more convenient to sit on my couch and watch Red Zone and flip back and forth between that and the Chiefs game. Arrowhead, driving out. I mean, it's like $70 to park. It just turns into an all day thing. Like back when I was still drinking, it's like, all right, then I'm going to be hungover. I just going into Monday, lots of things working against the NFL there. So I don't attend very many NFL games, even if I am a big Chiefs fan. So good question. Good question. All right. T. Higgins back in here. What's up, T. Higgins? I'm not saying the full name just because I'm scared. I don't want YouTube to flag the content, right? So we're gonna stick with T. Higgins. But I appreciate your support. Thank you for being here and providing the dialogue. T. Higgins says there is talk of Apple TV buying ESPN, and to be able to stream games on Apple TV, they would have to negotiate with the ACC and SEC, which projects out to 15 to 25 million per year per school, which would help the ACC. I mean, I'm not saying that you are wrong about that being a conversation piece. There has been talk of Apple buying ESPN, or Amazon actually was the one I saw late. I thought it was more steering toward Amazon at this point buying ESPN, but either way, there has been some of that talk. But nobody is 15 to 25 million, 25 million per year per school. Then your SEC numbers, then your Big Ten numbers. That ain't happening. I'm sorry, but that's not happening. That is not a realistic number. So I don't know where the wires are being crossed there on the math of that. I suppose somebody can bring it to my attention if there is an article claiming that you're going to go from 35 to 35 plus 25 to 60, that you're going to go from 35 mil a year to 60 mil a year by doing this. Not buying that, man. Not buying that. I'm sorry. You may be right that the ACC has a little bit more staying power than what Finebaum is saying. I do not think that you will be making $60 million per year per team and being that close to the SEC and Big Ten. But you are correct that, yes, there has been talk about the Apple and or Amazon, somebody buying out ESPN there and reworking some of that, and we'll see how that goes. But I do not think that you were getting that much money for that. And even then, if you are, and that's the negotiation, well, then the SEC just made an extra 25 million or probably more at that point too, and you're still going to be, the gap is still going to exist there between those conferences. I suppose at that point you close the gap on the Big Ten, but Florida State's still going to be looking at Florida across the way there in Gainesville and being like, well, hey, now they're making 95 mil a year or whatever, and we're making 60. So that gap still exists. So I do feel like there are some flaws in that a little bit. But again, no, I appreciate you. And if you're going to be respectful and voice a different opinion, I am definitely here for it, man. I won't give you the suck it that I gave to whoever it was that convinced me to actually change things and get StreamYard rolling. Jeremy, I think that was Jeremy, right? I won't give you the suck it for that. I promise. We'll have some good debate here. So I appreciate that. Healthy debate. Let me work this last thing in. This is a little last bit. Washington President Anna Marie Koss says on the move to the Big Ten, told Christian Capel, who is a guy that much like Canzano has a Substack. The Washington president said this about the move to the Big Ten, quote, "Change is always difficult, but I'll be honest, some of our biggest supporters said, thank you so much. It's been generally very positive. I understand tradition. I understand loyalty, but I also understand the need for change. We did not leave the Pac-12 that people are grieving." This is where it gets good. We did not leave the Pac-12 that people are grieving. We left the Pac-12 that was, at best, on life support. And it was fairly toxic because there was no trust. There was constant gossip and leaks. That last year was really tough on everybody. Now, we didn't need her to tell us that. We know that it was really tough on everybody with the media back and forth and everything happening there. But singling out like, hey, leaks were bad. There was not much trust there. Doesn't that have to lead you back to like Barnes and Schultz at Oregon State and Wazoo and feeding John Canzano and these articles that were clearly way too rosy, especially as we found out at the end there, just way too rosy about the situation that was actually happening within the league. And that was causing a lot of frustration with people. And the timelines thing. We're also talking about the timelines and people getting the timeline screwed up and who's speaking publicly. I'm sure it's all of that that's encompassed in that. I mean, that's a pretty telling quote. Like somebody leaving and being like, look, we know that the league is imploded. We know that the league is blown up now. We're not really that sorry because it was kind of a mess. And everybody right now is doing this whole, like, look at how good the league is on the field. How could you let this happen? And fair enough, right? And that is what should ultimately matter over everything else. But we can't just absolve the mess that the league had turned into. And it's been written about ad nauseum by those in Pac-12 country. The mistakes, starting with Larry Scott and the Pac-12 network that got them to that. There's a lot more that went into it than just this here and now. And people grieving the Pac-12 are definitely grieving a rosier picture of it than what it actually was at the end there. Stanford and Cal, their leadership screwing things up. George Kliavkoff screwing things up. Larry Scott screwing things up. Lots of people that have created a very rough environment. And so I can understand how even if things seem pretty functional on the field, they were very dysfunctional off the field. And I can understand how Washington would be pleased with being able to put that in the rearview mirror and join a very unified and powerful league in the Big Ten. So interesting stuff, though, to see that being talked about so much. To see that being just thrown out there publicly by the Washington president, not too afraid of that. I mean, I guess theoretically it was behind a paywall, but not much fear in rolling that one out there publicly. Scrolling down my notes list, the Oregon State Wazoo update. I'm kind of empty the notebook here toward the end. If you have something you want to beat the buzzer, click that $sign below the chat box in order to do so, to send in a super chat here if you want to beat the buzzer. Just a couple more minutes left with you. Jason Scheer tweeted, this was 2 days ago. Jason Scheer tweeted, momentum increasing for Oregon State and Washington State joining the Mountain West sooner than later. If you were on the last chat, you know that we were talking about, like, I love the scenario here where they could hold out as just a conference of two for the 2-year grace period, technically allowed by the NCAA, wait for the TV deal to expire in the Mountain West, be able to take teams in without the crazy exit fees that would be there. And grant of rights and all that stuff, make it a little bit cleaner to bring those schools in, save yourself a bunch of money. I love the idea of that. It was so wild and crazy. And I like Washington State and Oregon State just standing up and saying, well, screw you guys. We'll make the best out of this for a couple of years and then pick off the best schools for the best outcome for us. So I'm honestly a little disappointed if that's what's going to happen, but I also understand, like, Oregon State and Washington State need clarity. They need closure. They just need a home. They need to get it figured out. So I can understand if that is the way it's going, why that is the way it would be going. All right, it looks like we're going to finish with Matthew. Matthew, what are your two favorite sides at Joe's? All right, Joe's KC, one of the hot spots of barbecue in Kansas City. That's a good recommendation. If any of you are out there and come to KC, that would be one of the spots I would direct you to. Beans, barbecue beans, potato salad, creamy coleslaw, dirty rice, spicy slaw, seasonal vegetables, red beans and rice, fries, onion rings, gumbo, mac and cheese. You got the whole thing there, and you're making me hungry because I was already hungry. Well, fries first and foremost. I think Joe's has maybe the best fries in the city. It's all about the seasoning they put on that stuff, which you can buy separately. I need to just start doing that. I mean, it's like crack, man. The fry seasoning at Joe's is so good. As good as the barbecue is, those fries are impeccable. So I definitely do that. I'm a big coleslaw guy, and I do like their spicy slaw a lot. The beans are very good. The barbecue beans are very good, but I think if I had my druthers, most of the time, if I'm there, I'm going fries and I'm going spicy slaw. So good question, Matthew, leading me into a meal that is not going to be that good as soon as I get done here, but nice way to close. Always happy to answer your barbecue questions. Always happy to answer anything, even if it is a little bit off the wall there. And even if it is you disagreeing with me a little bit, like T. Higgins, hey, respect the hell out of you, man. And thank you all for being here in the chat tonight. I think that's going to wrap it up for me. This has been a fun one. Enjoy the weekend of college football coming up. I will leave you with the same message I always do. Share this channel with a friend. If you have friends and family that love college football, love your squad, love the Big 12, let them know about this channel. Subscribe if you have not. Live shows Wednesday and Sunday. They are very fun, very entertaining. I try to give you some content as well during the week outside of that, some more standalone stuff too. So great way to keep up on everything here. John-Kurtz-4 on Venmo. If you're not watching this live and you want to be able to support the channel, like the video on your way out the door. I would much appreciate that as well. Helps me with the YouTube algorithm. You can leave a comment in the comment section. That also helps, whether you love me, hate me, agree, disagree, all of that stuff. I will take it because it helps with the good old YouTube algorithm. Follow me on Twitter at JLKurtz. I think that is all I have for you guys. Wishing you the best of Wednesday nights. Enjoy the rest of your week. Enjoy your college football Saturday. And I will talk to you guys again on Sunday. Take care.